Hello there, Pursuing Freedom friends. Thanks for tuning in today. I'm your host, Erin Bradley. If it's your first time checking out this podcast, welcome. We've got a great show in store for you with my friend Brittney Kosev. And here's the thing. I met Brittney well, actually, I kind of like fell in love with her while she was on stage at a conference I was at in Austin a couple months ago. And this woman's energy and her vision and her personality and her heart and everything was just like shining like a lighthouse in the storm. And so I awkwardly just like stalked her at the dinner table and was like, I need to know you. I need to meet you. Like everything you said on stage was just speaking right to my soul and everything we're passionate about here at Pursuing Freedom. But anyhow, Brittney ended up opening her own brokerage, BK Real Estate, in 2023, which has since grown to roughly 125 agents and team members all over the state of Texas. And I wanted to have Brittney on the show today because she just is an illustration of so much that we are all craving, right? Like, how do we stay growth minded in a challenging market? How do we stay positive? How do we love our team members like we love our family and we grow humans that can thrive in this business? And Brittney is just masterful at all of these things. So I'm so excited for her to share her story and inspire you all to leave here just ready to grab life big and stop playing small and create the life of your dreams powered by the business you love now and into the future. So, with no further ado, Brittney, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us today.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Erin, so good to see you. And listen, the love attraction was mutual. I would have swiped on you if it was a friend dating app.
I love it. So, Brittany, bring us back to the beginning because I know you used to be a librarian, which is not the typical predecessor to real estate. You're a mom of two kids, I believe, and you're doing all the things. You're juggling motherhood, business development, leadership, everything, and you've done it in a short amount of time. So, share a little bit about that backstory and how it got you to where you are today.
Yeah, I mean, everybody in this business, you've heard you have to have a why or, the big purpose that drives you when motivation fails. And for me, 8 years ago is when I got licensed. 8 years ago is also the time I got a divorce. And at that time, I knew that a $60,000 school librarian salary wasn't going to cut it, raising two kids. And so I started thinking of options. What could I do? How could I make more money? And I threw out the idea of, okay, I could sell Arbonne or Cincy or do one of those other MLMs, whatever they're called. Or I was like, oh, I could bartend. Girl likes to drink. I could sling some drinks. But none of that aligned with a future I really wanted. I wanted financial freedom. I wanted to be in charge of my time, which we know in real estate doesn't always happen, but I get to pick and choose. So at the time when I was getting a divorce, when we first purchased our home, the agent at the time, sweet little lady, she kind of bumbled her way through the transaction. She was fumbling MLS papers. She forgot the lockbox codes to different properties. I felt like I was guiding her as much as she was trying to guide me. But at the end of it, she made $9,000 selling us that house. And so much of my life, Erin, has been about borrowing belief because I couldn't see it in myself. And so I thought, you know what, I'll pursue real estate. And like I said, borrowing belief is a big thing that we do as we're stretching ourselves, as we're growing. I grew up very humbly. I'm the oldest of seven. We grew up in a 3-bedroom trailer, and there were 9 of us in there and 2 chihuahuas. And I knew I didn't want that. And so I was the first person in my family to go to college. And the only people I knew that went to college at that time were educators. So I was borrowing belief even then. And so when I borrowed that belief from my agent at the time, my whole thought was, if she can do it, I can do it. And I jumped in just with this gusto that I needed because I needed the financial aspect of it. I learned later after getting some deals under my belt that I really loved it. I loved the fact that I got to help people with their purchases, both investors and homeowners, that I got to sell properties, but I also really enjoyed the numbers behind it. I wouldn't describe myself as math inclined, but the business of it made a lot of sense to me. And so I really just took passion I had for helping and serving that I learned from being the oldest of seven and also an educator, and poured that into my business for real estate. And for 3 years, I did both jobs. With 2 kids in tow, single mom. I mean, I remember when I was showing houses one weekend, turning to my kids in the back seat going, if you mess this up for us, you are going to be in so much trouble. And so that's how 3 years of my business went, was dragging them along. Now they're older, they're 12 and 14, so they can stay home while I'm out working. But my third year in real estate, I ended up making 80,000 selling houses and 60 as my school librarian salary. And I said, what am I doing? And once again, I looked around me at all the agents out there that were full-time, and I borrowed belief. I said, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And that next year I tripled my income. And then it just kind of kept going. And I was like, man, if I can take what I love, which is helping others, and I can still sell real estate and do all of this, I should just start my own company. And so I was already mentoring several agents at the brokerage, naturally, without, monetary compensation. So when I opened the brokerage, several of those agents came. And then we kind of grew word of mouth. I mean, people started seeing what we were doing. And the more agents joined, the more belief that I started having in myself. And then that changed everything. And so now, like Erin said, we're about 125 agents across Texas. And now that I've seen what's capable, especially in a down market, now I want to just take over the world.
I love that. When you talk about the borrowing belief, it's so important. And something I've heard many times is sometimes we have to borrow the belief we see in others, and sometimes we have to borrow the belief they see in us. And I remember being at my first financial rock bottom in 2008 and asking my dad for advice. And he's like, do you think you're going to be good at this someday? And sometimes we have to stop right there and ask ourselves, like, what do we actually believe? Because if we don't believe it, it doesn't matter what anyone else believes. Although, to your point, you're borrowing the belief. But what I also love is that when you say, if she can do it, so can I. If they can do it, so can I. But it's also, as you move into leadership now, there's an aspect of transitioning from being a great real estate agent into being a great leader. And a lot of the agents transitioning to team lead in any capacity, there's a lot of fear around somebody else messing it up. I say if I could do it, they could do it, because I'm not a rocket scientist, right? Like if you could figure out this business, if I could figure out this business, then literally anyone listening could figure it out. So it's both and, right? It's like both. Okay, if that person can do it, maybe I can too. So I'm borrowing the belief I see in them. And then as a leader, it's like, well, if I could do it, you definitely can do it, because I'm not a rocket
And
scientist.
honestly, that's how I grow agents. Just that right there. I know that, like you said, I'm not a rocket science. I'm not the smartest person in the room. I'm still learning things in real estate, nuances, new ways of doing things that I didn't know yesterday. And that's how I coach my agents. I'm like, guys, listen, I know you can do it because I did it, and I see in you the possibility. So if you're not doing it, then it allows me to look for the roadblocks that are
Yep,
there. Because oftentimes the roadblock is right here.
100%. Talk to me about the organization that you've been growing for the past few years. What are you most proud of with BK Real Estate, what it's become, and where you see it going?
What I'm most proud of, it comes down to the people, the people that choose to align with us. And that's how I say it. It really is an alignment. They have to fit our core values, and everything filters from our core values. Whether you know what they are, you have some. Mine are stated. It's something we say every single day in our meetings. We're spirited, we're service, passion, integrity, reputable, innovation, team excellence, and discipline. But I live those values, and we give shout outs to other agents at the start of every meeting to those values. And so what I'm most proud of at this company is so many amazing people have chosen to align with us. And everyone from, I mean, our San Antonio division leaders, an Air Force veteran, she closes so many deals a year. I just can't believe sometimes that she's with us. We have agents that are brokers that choose to align with us. We've got a guy here in DFW. He's in the top 1% of agents in Texas. I mean, he made, gosh, 270,000 GCI last month. And when I think of these people and their choice, because they have choices, they get calls every day getting recruited from other brokerages. That gives me so much love, passion, and joy that they see what I see and they want to be part of this team. So that's where I see my love and joy right now. And then also the agents that are struggling that come over, maybe the broken wing agents, like you've heard before, where they've done some deals, but they're just not getting the traction. They can't seem to fly long enough. And then we fix it. We find the roadblocks and then they set sail. That is where I see the joy. Where I see us going in the future is I want to continue to strengthen Texas as we start looking at other states to move into. It's absolutely crazy the amount of learning, knowledge, and growth you can have in this industry because there's so many facets to it.
Well, that was one of my next questions, is that for anybody who's listening just to the audio right now and not watching the video, you had mentioned earlier that when we want to identify what is really holding people back. And it's interesting because so many people have this, I don't want to say it's a false notion, but it's only a partial solution, is that when I'm feeling stuck, the antidote is always action, action, action. And so they look for the action plan without addressing the mindset piece. And you can have no shortage of, what I could do or what I should do. But if I don't do it and I don't feel like doing it, we need to figure out what's going on there that's keeping you stuck. And you alluded to it being up here, meaning in your head, it's the mindset piece. So as you've been learning and developing, where have your mentors come from, or who's helped you, and what are the tools that you have in your tool belt to help you with your own mindset? Because to be a leader can feel lonely at times, and you've got to work on your mindset first and foremost in order to show others what's possible. Like, can you talk us through a little bit of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't say that I have a specific mentor in person that I turn to when my mindset's low. I do have a business coach that was a life coach that before that was my therapist that got me through my divorce. He's always helped me with that. But the biggest aspect, the biggest tool I have in my tool belt are all the books, the podcasts. I mean, if I'm feeling low, I turn on, depending on what it is. If I'm feeling like I don't have it in me to give another few hours of work, I'm David Goggins, let's fucking go, or it might be where I'm like, no, I need to work on my manifestation skills. And I might put on something like Mel Robbins, or Tony Robbins. It's all different people for different ways I'm feeling. Right now, I'm really into Alex and Layla Hormozy because they're so business growth minded. And that's where I'm at right now in my career. And so we all get low. It's what are you turning to cope? Are you turning to alcohol to numb? Are you turning to social media to distract yourself? But I try really hard when I'm feeling low to not pull to any distractions or numbing. I find a book, I listen to a podcast, I go for a walk, because just to sidetrack on neuroscience for a second, so many of us are dopamine dependent, but in an unhealthy way. We're all day long scrolling for those instant hits. We're watching the reels. We're dependent on quick hits of dopamine to keep our motivation and our energy levels high, but it's really not helping us in any way. I mean, if we could put our phones down for an hour and give that hour dedicated work time, because what you said earlier, people turn to action, but I'll tell you the equation here for success. Real success is two parts. It's massive action plus unwavering faith. And that's the mindset piece. I mean, when shit hits the fan, it's how you show up differently than you would have before. And unwavering faith doesn't mean you just put it out there to the universe, to God, and hope that it gets better. It's belief in yourself. And sometimes you've got to borrow it.
When you were talking about the agent who made $240,000, and then there was a pause, and then you said last month,
Yeah.
in my brain, and I'm thinking the listeners, we were all probably like, wait, what did you just say there?" So
Yeah.
when you talk about massive action, I'm curious, a lot of the things that we talk about on the show and also in the coaching community is like, can you rattle off your recipe for success? Like, do you have minimum standards? Do you have non-negotiables? And my suspicion is as you align with agents, as you mentor agents, there's probably some recipe there for success. Do you feel like it's universal what you see that agent doing versus what you see another agent who's thriving doing? Or do you feel like it's customized to the individual?
I think that there's universal standards, but then there's customization. It's just like a house, right? A house is built with a frame, but that frame could be built with a 3D printer, or that frame could be sticks and stones, but it's still there. And then you go inside and you customize it to make it your own. The framework that I see the best agents utilizing is they pick a couple of lead generation strategies that work for their personality type, and then they attack them in a time block format. So it's understanding who you are, but then time blocking dedicated hours until you get whatever the KPIs you're tracking. And that's the third piece, is you have to track. You've got to know what your 3 lead gen strategies that you want to use are, and then you have to continuously track the data around it. So if you choose social media, or if you choose cold outreach, or if you choose door knocking or open houses, whatever it is, are you tracking the numbers? If you say, okay, my goal is to have 12 closings before the end of the year. So we're in July right now when we're filming this. And so that means, okay, that means I need 2 a month. So if I want 2 closings a month, how many calls am I going to make? If cold outreach is your strategy, and then you're tracking it and you're holding yourself accountable, or you're joining an accountability group, or whatever the case may be. Some people need that accountability because they don't have it on their own, which is no, I'm not hating on anybody. My sister and I laugh all the time. She has ADHD. She also works at the brokerage with me. We sell real estate together, but also we're the admin at the company. So we put on 2 hats. We're the Selling Sisters Realty Group, and then we're also BK Real Estate. But she likes to work on Google Meet with me, even if we're not at the same house. We'll just be on Google Meet and we're just working. But she likes that because it keeps her accountable. It's almost like parallel play for the people that know Carl Jung. Parallel play is what young children do. They know someone's there. They're not really playing with them, but it helps them feel like they're part of something.
Yeah, I love that so much. I remember when we were at that conference actually, and I think it was Janet who did the integrity check and had
Yeah.
us rate ourselves
Oh, I
in
love her.
integrity to, yes. And it was like, well, how would you rate yourself in integrity to others, showing up on time, honoring your commitments? And most people are like a 9 or a 10. And then it's like, how are you in integrity to yourself? And then people's number drops, and some of them drop drastically, but almost everybody's drops somewhat. And so we talked about that in our coaching community. It was like, what's the antidote? Well, the antidote is awareness, and then it's a plan, and then it's a schedule, to your point, time blocking, and then it's accountability. Because if I tell Brittany I'm going to do it, and I'm a 9 or a 10 in integrity to somebody else, but I'm at 5 in integrity to myself, I'm going to be more likely to do it just because I told you I was going to do it. Like that's enough to change my behavior.
Absolutely. And whenever I have a new goal that I'm trying to hit, or a bad habit I'm trying to break, I put it out there to people I care about and I know care about me. And it's like, hey, on August 15th, I'm going to stop drinking. Hold me accountable. And I say it to so many people that I'm going to hold myself accountable because I don't want to let them down. So you said it, like when you're becoming your highest version of yourself, whether it's the highest version of a loan officer, your highest version of a realtor, your best version of a mom, right? That best version of you, it starts with awareness. Like you said, these are the areas that I'm failing. But then the next step is intention. You have to choose to live with purpose. Whatever the actions, whatever the habits, whatever you're trying to do, it's got to be intentional. And then you have to decide, right? I'm going to do this. I'm going to change myself. And then it's discipline. And that discipline and accountability piece is so important.
You pretty much just summed it up perfectly. I feel like we could just drop the mic right there. Now, I mean, you've dropped so much gold here, and it's funny because we could talk about it and it sounds simple. That doesn't make it easy, and I think that's why it's so important for the listeners. Number one, you've tuned in here today. Hopefully, this gives you a dose of belief that there's literally no limit to what's possible for you, for any of us, for anyone around us. And when we feel called to more, I think that it's important to heed that call, even though we don't always know how we're going to get there. And from there, it's like get yourself in the room with people that are going to have a belief that you can borrow, and they're also going to believe in you that you can borrow. And then from there, you start to expand and elevate to match your highest potential.
And I'll tell you one of the biggest roadblocks that I've seen, we talked about mindset, that really is at the crux of it, one of the biggest roadblocks in most people. They think in scarcity, they think in anxiety. They worry so much about the what ifs and what have I done before that they can't make the changes. But what you dwell on is what you dwell in. And that's the biggest thing. When I talk about the way we were raised and the seven of us in that 3-bedroom trailer with my parents in the primary, so it was 2 rooms that us 7 kids were saying. People ask, oh my God, how did you do it? And I'm like, but I've separated that. Now I think back to that as fuel and motivation to focus forward, because I don't want to dwell on all the wrongs I felt like I have been done to me. And I'm putting air quotes up for the people that are listening, done to me. Because being a victim and living in that victim mentality and blaming other people for the mistakes, the wrong chances, or the market, we have grown to 125 agents from beginning of 2023 January until now in a down market, and it's because of the fact that I refuse to blame the market conditions. I refuse to blame my lack of business skills. You've got to level up with every new opportunity you have in life, with every new challenge, you level up. And then, like Dan Martell says, one of my favorite authors, every level has a new devil. And so then you've got to figure out, all right, what's this new devil I've got to face as we level up? For me right now, as I'm growing this business, I've learned, okay, I love coaching, I love teaching, and I love training. What I don't love is bookkeeping, taxes, and budgeting. Like I hate it, but I've got to level up. It's my new devil.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful. And it's also, it is kind of amazing that we could be in this environment and you can be a witness to those who are thriving and you can be a witness to those who are barely surviving. And it always leaves me so curious. How can it be, number one? And then what makes these people so special? And you said it earlier, it's unwavering faith combined with massive action. And I think if we're willing to do the mindset piece, we can start to come into the massive action with a completely different frequency of love and contribution and engagement and fun and interaction. And all of it can be infused with this more positive magnetic energy that results in opportunities seemingly finding you out of the blue. And that's not, that's not too woo for some people. They're like, I just need you to tell me how to get more deals. I'm like, okay, this is the way, right? We have to come from within and then we show up outwardly as this version of ourselves who believes that opportunities exist and therefore they find us.
Yeah, and back to what you just said, it's too woo. So our brains are 100% capable of anything that we decide upon, but it filters everything, and you know this, through our reticular activating system. So for the people that don't believe in the woo woo or manifestation or whatever, that's fine. You don't have to even say those words. But you should believe in neuroscience and the reticular activating system, because it's filtering everything that we think about. Us as humans, we have 80 to 90,000 thoughts floating through our head every day. And the majority of those thoughts are the same kind of things. Oh my God, I'm so worried about money. I can't believe this happened. And so then our RAS, our reticular activating system, because we're thinking those thoughts, is going to find more of those, because that's what it does, is it finds more of what you're thinking about because it thinks it's important. And so when we train our brain to look for the positive, to look for the good, to be focused on gratitude, to look for opportunities rather than obstacles, we're training our RAS then to look for those things.
Yes, I love that so much. Oh my gosh, you've said so much. It's yeah, again, I hope the listeners are not just hearing this, but willing to embody these truths because this is the path to abundance in any market because we're not allowing the circumstances to determine our reality. We're creating our reality by following literally all the advice Brittany shared today. So I'm so glad to see that you're expanding in such a beautiful way. And your agents and your team members are so lucky to be finding their way to you. So if anyone's listening and you're in Texas and you're feeling called to connect with Brittany, how can they get a hold of you or find you, follow you, all the things?
So my Instagram is at Brittney_Kosiv. We're BK Real Estate. You can look us up, bkrealestatetx.com. There's an option to schedule a call with me. I'd be happy to talk to anyone that's open to being part of what we're doing, because mindset is a big part of what I do. Every single week on Mondays, I kick us off for the week with a virtual call to get our minds right. And so this Monday, actually, I'm going to talk about commitment, because committing is a big piece of this. So many agents treat this business, so many LOs treat this business like a hobby. It's more of an interest to them. But anything you treat like a hobby is going to pay you like a hobby, which is not a lot or nothing. And so we've got to commit. And so mindset's a big piece of who we are. If that aligns with people, I'd love to talk to them. Obviously, we talk about real estate, we sell houses, we sell land, we do it all. But if this speaks to you and you feel like, yeah, I get that, I could see myself vibing with those people, then reach out. And if you're in a different state, follow me on Instagram. I'm always sharing mindset related stuff, real estate news. I have a podcast as well called Cut the BS, Build the Dream.
I love that so much. So make sure you check out Cut the BS, Build the Dream, follow Brittany, and get a hold of her if you want to get to know her better. I appreciate you so much, Brittany. Thank you for taking the time today.
Thanks, Erin.
To all my friends out there, I love you. I appreciate you. Do us a favor. If there was a takeaway today, send Britt a DM or send me one at Pursuing Freedom Official. And if you need more support on your journey, hop over to pursuingfreedom.com. Check out all the resources there. I love hearing from you. We are putting this content out there to hopefully move the needle in your lives, in your beliefs. And so we love hearing from you. If you've had any takeaway, and if this was powerful for you, share it with somebody that you care about, because everyone needs more of this message. So as always, I love you. I appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.